So my capstone project looks at the effects of physical effort on arousal. So in this case, physical effort will be measured by handgrip force. And the question is, does handgrip force affect arousal ratings? And my faculty mentor is Dr. Zhang. So kind of to break down the concepts that the research question considers, I'll be going over some past literature. In 2007, Bradley and his team looked at emotional content when viewing images. They looked at the idea of late positive potential, which is the response to emotionally engaging stimuli. Late component or late potential was found to be related to emotional content of images and more than the image properties themselves. And the most emotional response was found by aversive images, followed by positive images, and then neutral images. So this research kind of suggests that cognition potentially may be related to emotion. Then Liu and his team in 2015 looked at the effects of color and contrast on fearfulness ratings, and they found that high contrast images were more fearful, while less contrast images were less fearful. Overall, images can evoke different levels of fearfulness naturally, and this also suggests that cognition is related to emotion. Park and his team in 2021 looked at participants and they looked at grip strength as well as visual search. And they found that participants who had more varied grip strengths were found to have more different performances in the conditions. So essentially, higher grip strength was kind of associated with a better performance. And it was found that visual search was faster for 40% grip strength than 5%, perhaps to the higher level of arousal from the hand grip. This can be explained by the Yerkes-Dodson law, which is that medium arousal is ideal for performance as opposed to low arousal or high arousal. So this also suggests that physical effort is related to cognition and perhaps explained by the factor of arousal. And Bradley and Lang and Nielsen and Matter also looked at this relationship of physical effort and arousal. And Bradley and Lang found that physical action can be related to pleasure and arousal based on the specific context. And in the present study, that context would be the hand grip is the measure of physical action and measuring arousal specifically. So Zhang and his team in 2022 have participants hear clips of either neutral or negative arousal. Under negative arousal, participants store more information longer term into the working memory, and specifically looking at working memory consolidation. They found that individual differences came to play, as those with more fear from the videos shown or more prior stress had faster working memory consolidation, as well as potentially adrenergic responses. So this is the fight or flight response. So essentially, they found that those with more stress levels or more negative emotions were able to encode information faster into their working memory, suggesting that physical effort is related to cognition, and this can be explained by the factor of negative arousal in the study. Overall, the relationships that I've kind of explained through the literature is that cognition is related to emotion, physical effort is related to cognition, and it can be explained by arousal, and physical effort is related to arousal. So while these relationships have been established in past literature, this present study looks at how these relationships interact. So this brings me to explaining what the relationship is. We will look at how cognitive and physical activities often interact with arousal in our daily lives. And as an example, a reaction of fear triggered by visual identification of a dangerous object or situation may elicit a stress response that prepares the body to fight or flee. So we are considering arousal to visual stimuli in relation to motor actions. the question is, does the exertion force of hand grip when watching images affect one's perceived ratings of arousal? And hand grip would be the measure of physical action. So that is one independent variable, with the other independent variable being watching images, which would be the cognitive part where we're looking at visual stimuli, and both of those together to look at people's ratings of arousal. So it is predicted that arousal ratings with the concurrent hand grip task will increase with exerted hand grip force. And if the prediction is supported, cognitive and physiological aspects would be important to understanding emotional responses such as fear. So kind of a situation that this could play out in real life is if we're looking at patients in clinical interventions. So we're able to learn more about what type of emotional reactions they have, and that can kind of help us support them in these like struggling times to improve their mental health and well-being. So the procedure in each trial, you have a hand dynamometer. So you're told to either grip it to 5% of your grip strength or 45% of your grip strength. And so yeah, you see that before every image that you see in the trial. So you will see an arousal scale after, which is the self-assessment mannequin 9-point scale. And when you reach the target, you should hold at that level while you watch that picture. And you release your grip and select the level of arousal. The reason you release your grip is so it doesn't like cause disturbance when you're making that choice. And something that we've noted is to avoid clicking the same response and varying the response levels of arousal throughout the task. So this is kind of a picture to give a better idea of how the task is. So you see the get ready prompt, and then the red bar is where you do the hand grip. So you should make sure that you reach above the hand grip, but not overshooting. So you hold the hand grip until you see the image the first time. And then when you see the arousal scale, you release the hand grip and choose a rating. You choose it on this 9-point scale from least arousal to most arousal. And finally, you see how you did on that grip task. So potential limitations that we have, participants may put a lot of focus on the hand grip task success, but to kind of account for that, we will have participants release the hand dynamometer before choosing the arousal rating. And self-report bias is a big thing in studies with like different types of scales, as well as where participants kind of choose their own ratings. So we encourage participants to vary arousal responses, but we are aware that that can only do so much for self-report bias. So that is something to consider. And then individual differences can also account for the arousal ratings. So perhaps participants may have mental health issues or mental illnesses that may affect kind of like the arousal rating they choose. Like say they have like ADHD, like that might change kind of the ratings that they give. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So in the future research, we hope to continue to consider this relationship, and we hope that it can be studied more. And maybe an idea is to consider physical activity such as running instead of physical effort. And that is what I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Divitha, for your interesting and informative presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Divitha? Jay.
Yes. I was wondering, could there be some